Welcome to this video on Pythagorean theorem and irrational numbers. Students will work with geometric and symbolic representations of square root and cube roots. Here are the essential vocabulary words that will be introduced in the unit. Cube root, hypotenuse, irrational number, legs, Pythagorean theorem, rational number, and square root. Students will be working with the relationship between the side length and area of squares. We know two main ways to find the area of a square. Multiply the square's side length by itself, or decompose and rearrange the square so that we can see how many square units are inside. For example, if we decompose and rearrange the tilted square in the diagram, we can see that its area is 10 square units. But what is the side length of the tilted square? It cannot be 3 units since 3 squared is 9. It cannot be 4 units since 4 squared is 16. In order to write the side length of the square whose area is 10 square units, we use notation called a square root. We write the square root of 10 as the square root of 10, and it means the length of the side of a square whose area is 10 square units. All of these statements are true. The square root of 9 equals 3 because 3 squared equals 9. The square root of 16 is 4 because 4 squared is 16. The square root of 10 is the side length of a square whose area is 10 square units and is the square root of 10 squared, which is 10. Students will work with the Pythagorean theorem, which describes the relationship between the sides of any right triangle. A right triangle is any triangle with a right angle. The side opposite the right angle is called the hypotenuse, and the other two sides are called legs. Here we have a triangle with a hypotenuse C and legs A and B. The Pythagorean states that for any right triangle, the sum of the squares of the legs are equal to the square of the hypotenuse. In other words, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. We can use the Pythagorean theorem to tell if a triangle is a right angle or not. To find the value of one side length of a right triangle, if we know the other two, and to answer questions about situations that can be modeled with right triangles. For example, let's say we wanted to find the length of the line segment here. We can first draw a right triangle and determine the lengths of the two legs. Next, since this is a right triangle, we know that 24 squared plus 7 squared equals c squared, which means the length of the line segment is 25 units. Students will learn about cube roots. We previously learned that a square root is the side length of a square with a certain area. For example, if a square has an area of 16 square units, then its edge length is 4 units because the square root of 16 equals 4. Now think about a solid cube. The cube has a volume, and the edge length of a cube is called the cube root of its volume. In this diagram, the cube has a volume of 64 cubic units. Even without the useful grid, we can calculate that the edge length is 4 from the volume since the cube root of 64 is 4. Cube roots that are not integers are still numbers that we can plot on a number line.